Hello. This video is going to cover the cross section of the spinal cord, and we're leading ourselves up to the point of finding where are the roots of the brachial plexus. So I'm going to start by drawing this butterfly shape that is gray matter. And gray matter is made up of dorsal horns that will be at the top of the page here, and ventral horns at the bottom of the page. Surrounding our gray matter, we have white matter. So I'm just going to draw this here, leaving some gaps. Okay, so this outline represents white matter. And the gaps are so that we can add on these extensions. Okay, and I'm going to draw the exact same thing on this side. Okay, so what actually makes up these structures are the neurons that are coming into the spinal cord and then leaving the spinal cord. So if we have a sensory stimulus from, say, the upper limb, we will have a sensory neuron starting out here somewhere, coming along this pathway here, and then sensory information is always going to run posteriorly and land here in the dorsal horn. So as we are traveling along, this segment here is referred to as the dorsal root. And the bump that I drew on the dorsal root is because this is the location of the cell bodies of all of those neurons. And when those cell bodies cluster together, they do form this bump along the dorsal root, and it's called the dorsal root ganglion. That information is going to have a synapse in the dorsal horn and then will ascend up to the brain. Then you might want to have some motor information that will tell you what to do with that sensory information. And that cell body of the motor neuron is going to start here in the ventral horn. And motor information is always going to exit along the ventral root. Now you see here that our sensory and motor neurons end up combining. And in this segment here, we call this the spinal nerve. The spinal nerve is the segment that exits through the intervertebral foramen at each level. And you'll see that it's relatively short because almost right away it's going to split again. And it splits into a small dorsal primary ramus and a much larger ventral primary ramus. So if our example is still for upper limb movement, this will come along the ventral primary ramus and head towards its target muscle. Now this whole pattern can happen on the other side if we think about something coming from the back. So skin on the back, for example, if it's going to pick up some sensation, you will have a sensory neuron coming along the dorsal primary ramus, along the spinal nerve, along the dorsal root, and into the dorsal horn. And again, a cell body helping to contribute to that dorsal root ganglion. And then if you have motor neurons that are heading to deep back muscles, for example, again, motor information always going out the ventral root, along the spinal nerve, but can also take this pathway out the dorsal primary ramus. These anterior primary rami at the level of C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. These are what we call the roots of the brachial plexus. Now we'll get out of the way so you can see that.